Hey guys, welcome back to Priceless B Movies. You know, most of the movies that I do, and most of the movies I choose to review myself, like when I'm not doing a request, the movies I choose to review on here, I'm generally choosing for their entertainment value. They're not movies that I think too many people are going to discuss, or that will go down in history as the most influential films of their time. You know, they're fun movies. They're horror, they're fantasy, they're comedy, they're an escape. And that's what I love about movies, is that they're an escape from the everyday. That being said, every now and then there's a film that I get to review that I think does have some real artistic merit to it, and that I think is worth more of a look than what mainstream society would like to think. And that's the whole reason that I created this page. And this film is a brilliant example. Body Parts. Body Parts stars Jeff Fahey. He's this criminal psychologist, and he's in the middle of this kind of midlife crisis. He doesn't feel he's getting anywhere in his work. He doesn't feel like his life has too much of a meaning. And not too long after the movie starts, he ends up in this horrible car accident, and his wife comes down to the hospital to see him, and this kind of cold-as-ice surgeon, played by Lindsay Duncan, comes up to Jeff Fahey's wife and basically says, we have to lose the arm. Your husband's going to live, but we got to lose the arm. However, I can give him a new arm. Not some prosthetic, not like a hook, but an actual human arm. But we have to act quickly. You don't have a whole lot of time to think about this. So Jeff Fahey's wife agrees, and we have this operation. And now Jeff Fahey has a brand new human arm. And it's pretty great for the guy at first, you know. He gets this renowned zest for life, and he starts to feel just overall better about himself. It's almost as if this operation gives him this new lease on life. But of course, this being a horror movie, if that was it and that was just a happy ending, this would be an absolutely horrible horror movie. Fahey starts having these dreams, these nightmares, visions, whatever you want to call them, of blood and people screaming, people being strangled and cut up and all this horrible stuff. And before too long, he ends up finding out that this brand new arm that he has grafted to his body used to belong to a very vicious killer. Basically what we have here is kind of a modern take on The Hands of Orlac, the old silent film with Conrad Veidt. Now that he realizes that this arm used to belong to this really awful person, he starts to fear for his sanity. He starts kind of acting out in ways that aren't really like him, and he starts to wonder if having this killer's arm is somehow affecting his sanity and his soul. This is a very interesting idea for a film, and while there have been other films that are like it and have kind of the same themes and ideas, I think this one kind of stands out above the rest. Jeff Fahey's particularly good in this movie. Most of the movies that I know him from, he's either the villain or he's some kind of one-dimensional character. It's not often you see him as a good guy, and it's not often that you see him play a character who has so many layers to him. So this is kind of a treat for me because I really like the guy in a lot of movies he's in. So it was great to be able to see him kind of stretch himself a little bit. Kim Delaney as Fahey's wife and Lindsay Duncan as the surgeon are both, you know, they're okay. I do wish that both of them had a little more to do, and I don't quite buy some of the things that Lindsay Duncan does, some of the things she says. Her character is a bit inconsistent for me. I almost, at the end of the movie, would have liked to get a little more insight as to what's going on in her character's mind, because she seems, I don't know, there's just something uneven about the character. Also showing up in smaller parts are Zach Smokey, who some of us horror fans might know from movies like The Serpent and the Rainbow and Vampire in Brooklyn. Here he's a detective, and, you know, he does a pretty reasonably good job. But, you know, once again, he is a smaller part. He doesn't have a whole lot to do. In fact, ultimately, I think his character could have been cut from the movie and it wouldn't have suffered. But it's still nice to see the guy in here. Also, Brad Dourif, Chucky himself, shows up as another recipient of this operation. It turns out that he's got the other arm. So there are some nice scenes with him and Jeff Fahey where they are kind of debating, arguing back and forth whether or not this operation is a blessing or a curse. I like those scenes a lot, and I really like the sense of humor that they give Brad Dourif's character. For obvious reasons, I don't want to tell you too much more about what happens in the movie. Basically, I've just spoiled a good deal of the first maybe half hour, and I really don't want to spoil any more because this movie does get very horrific. It does get very bloody in the final third. But, you know, it is a horror movie. I've read some reviews that complain about the amount of gore in this and say that it's off-putting, but this is a horror movie about people having other people's body parts and limbs being fused from this person to this person. I don't know why anyone would expect this to not be a bloody horror movie, but I guess some people do, so I may as well offer that up as a warning. If you have a weak stomach or a faint heart, you might want to skip this one. Personally, I really like this movie. There's only one flaw, one fault that I have with the film, and it's a fault that does have a bit of an impact because it's a fault that's continuous through the whole movie, and that's that I really don't understand. In the first few scenes when Lindsay Duncan goes to Jeff Fahey's wife and says, "We can give him a new arm," the fact that the first thing out of Kim Delaney's mouth isn't, "You have a new arm for him? Where does the arm come from?" That just kind of bugs me. That it takes over halfway through the movie before anyone realizes, oh, these limbs came from a killer. No one thought to ask where these human body parts were coming from. They were just, yeah, okay. You know, a blood transfusion, I might not care who I'm getting blood from. If someone told me I'm getting an arm from somebody, the first thing I would think to ask is, who's given me that arm? The fact that nobody stops to ask questions like that in this movie really bothers me. I'm able to do a lot with horror movies and kind of suspension of disbelief, but that still bothers me. I think that at least should have, they should have addressed that at some point early on in this film. They didn't have to necessarily say, oh, well, it came from a serial killer and give that twist away, but someone should have at least asked the question. But that's the only problem I really have with this movie. So at the end of the day, I'm going to give Body Parts 3.5 stars. It is almost great. It is just that one serious lapse in logic that I cannot overlook and I cannot forgive. Everything else in this movie is really solid. There's some great creepy moments, some very effective suspenseful sequences, and the whole idea of it, honestly, is kind of unnerving. So that's my review of Body Parts. Stay tuned for more reviews and more blogs. I've got a lot more coming your way. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more Priceless B movies.